Welcome to a new episode from Perfect English Podcast. Today it's all about business. And today we're going to talk about the career ladder. We're going to talk about jobs that you take for life and how your career path changes from good to better until you finish or retire. We're going to talk about jobs for now that are the jobs that keep changing, companies that restructure, companies that downsize or delayer. We're going to talk about in-house staff and freelancers, and we're going to talk about losing your job. Of course, we're going to focus on the words we can use to describe these things, and we're going to talk about some ideas related to this thing as well. So, if you're ready for the career ladder, let's dive in and learn more about the career ladder. Now, let's start for a job for life. Many people used to work for the same organization until they reached retirement. And retirement is the age at which people retire. They leave their work willingly, and because they reach the age of usually 60 to 64, at that time they retire and they stay at home to enjoy well-deserved rest and comfort after a long time of hard work. So this is the first thing we need to know about, and that is retirement. And the verb from that is retire. And that means to end your working life, not your life, because life can start in a different way after retirement for many people. Retirement doesn't have to be the end of life. It's just the end of your working life. In this situation, when people work for the same organization until they reached retirement, career paths were clear. You could work your way up the career ladder, getting promotion to jobs that were more senior with greater responsibility and a greater pay, of course. You would probably not be demoted. That means move to a less senior job. So we have a couple of things we might want to talk about more. The first thing is the career path. Now, a career path is the sequence of jobs you take along the way of all your career and that make up your career plan. What do you want for yourself? Where do you want to get? Now, the career path we choose is the road we want to take, and this road includes many jobs. We may start as junior staff, we may move up to become in the management and then senior management perhaps. So that is the whole journey we take, all the jobs we take to get where we want, to a position or a certain kind of job that satisfies our ambitions, is what we call the career path. Now, in the past, or when people work for the same company all their lives, the career path is clear. You start working in junior positions, and in time you get promoted, or as we said here, you work your way up the career ladder. So the career ladder is simply like a ladder. You start from junior jobs or junior positions, and you start to climb up to senior positions. So it could be that simple when you work for one company. Career paths can be a lot more complicated when you work for different companies, when you change companies, because sometimes you have to move down the career ladder to go to a different company and start over. But that's not a bad thing. Sometimes it is the right move. But what we're talking about here is a job for life. So if it is one company, you start working for this company, you work your way up the career ladder, you get promoted. Getting promotions, that means you get more senior jobs. And a senior job, it's like saying when you work as a regular employee, then you become a manager or a supervisor. And that is a more senior job. You become responsible for more things and you become responsible for more people. Obviously, when you get promoted, you get greater responsibilities, greater pays, maybe greater benefits as well. And usually when you work for one company, if you don't make a terrible mistake, you would probably not be demoted. And demoted, obviously, is the opposite of promoted. Now, when you are promoted, that means you get a more senior job, a better job, a higher position. If you are, unfortunately, demoted for some reason, that means you get back down the career ladder, not up. Now, that happens rarely because usually people at these stages tend to leave the company. If something like that happens, if they are demoted, usually people leave the company. And if you leave the company, whether because you are demoted or you want to change jobs, you could resign or hand in your notice. So these expressions are used to talk about officially leaving the company. Obviously, when you want to leave a company, you can't just not come the next day and that's it. You leave them. You have to tell them, you have to resign or hand in your notice. They have to accept your resignation and you have to give them a notice. And a notice means that you can't just leave right away. You have to give them a month or two to find replacement for you and for you to train this replacement when this person comes. It depends on how important your job is in the company and how long you've been working for the company. Sometimes you need to give only a 1 month notice, 2 month notice, sometimes even more, maybe 3 or 4 month notice. So that is for a job for life. But now let's talk about some changes when companies restructure and jobs are lost because of that. What are the words we use to describe this situation? I'm not going to say these are temporary jobs because they are not, but changes happen a lot. Companies sometimes face some problems. They start to lose money because of many reasons, but sometimes maybe because the workforce is inflated. They have a lot of people working. They don't actually need all these people working for them. So they decide to downsize or delayer, which are two different things we will talk about right now. We'll take an example of Modco, which is a fictional company. So we'll talk about this company and we will explain what these keywords mean. Now, Modco has downsized and delayered. The number of management levels in the company hierarchy has been reduced from 5 to 3. And many managers have lost their jobs. Now, I'll stop here before I continue to explain to you the meaning of downsize and delayer. Now, to downsize means to reduce the number of employees that work for you. You had 100 employees, maybe you want to make them only 50. So you're downsizing. That doesn't mean you are dismissing people because they've done something wrong. But because of new policy or a new strategy you're implementing in the company, you want to become more efficient with fewer employees and more work to be done to maximize your profits. So downsize is to bring the number of employees down by 20%, 50%, it depends. Now, sometimes companies do that simply because they're losing money and their first solution is to downsize. And of course, a lot of people lose their job. It is a tragedy for some people, but sometimes it's the only resort for companies. But we'll get to the next word now, delayer. When we say Modco has delayered, when a company delayers, what does that mean? Does it mean they are dismissing employees just like downsizing? Well, most of the time, delayering includes some downsizing in the process, but it is a different thing. Delayering, that means you reduce the levels of management in the company. Now, the hierarchy of the company sometimes could be a lot vertical. Vertical means that you have many layers of management. Let's say you are an employee for a company. You report to your line manager, and line managers report to another manager. And those managers on top of the line managers, they report to senior managers. And those senior managers report to directors. So here we have 5 levels of management. Well, that is a little bit an old type of hierarchy for companies. Companies nowadays tend to be flatter from flat. That means they have fewer levels of management. The hierarchy is more horizontal than it is vertical. So when we say the company delayered, that means the number of management levels in the company hierarchy has been reduced. And in our case, the reduction happened from 5 levels to 3 levels. So that means many managers have lost their jobs. And let me continue with Modco. Modco has reorganized and restructured in order to become flatter. And we just talked about flatter, that means with fewer layers of management, and leaner, that means with fewer and more productive employees. Restructuring is structuring again, make a new structure of the company. Now, when you restructure the company, you make it flatter, means we have fewer layers of management. Leaner, we have fewer employees. So that is both delayering and downsizing. They did this to reduce costs and increase efficiency and profits. Employees said the company used words like restructure to make the situation sound positive and acceptable. And obviously, this is one of the things companies use all the time. Instead of saying we're dismissing employees or we're firing employees, they say we are restructuring. They don't tend to use the word downsize or delayer a lot. They use the word restructure to make it sound positive, when most of the times it's not. It's negative, and it's negative for a lot of people because a lot of people lose their jobs in the process. But anyway, we're not here to judge. We're not here to say which is better. We're just here to learn how to talk about these things and to understand them. And now we will move to a different idea. Also for Modco, we will continue with what Modco did. Modco restructured. They made the structure flatter. They made it leaner with fewer and more productive employees, etc. But they resorted to another solution as well, and that is replacing in-house staff with freelancers. What does that mean? Modco has outsourced many jobs previously done by in-house personnel. Now, when you outsource something, that means you give it to other companies or people to do it. And these companies or people who do certain jobs for your company, they're not part of the company. They're not employees in the company. They do these jobs for a certain amount of money or a fee. And that might be useful for a company because these people are not employees. They don't have benefits. They just get the money for the job they do. And also there's another benefit for the company. You don't pay them unless they do things, unless you need them to do things. So if you have times in the year when you don't need these services or these products, you don't have to pay. Unlike when you have employees, when you have to pay all year round, whether they have a job to do or not. So the word outsourced means that certain jobs were given to outside sources, to people who are not in the company, not part of the company. Previously, these things were done by in-house personnel. When we say in-house, that means people who are employed in the company, employees in the company. So, Modco has outsourced many jobs previously done by in-house personnel. Outside companies clean the offices, transport goods, and collect money from customers. So these things are done by outside companies, not by in-house personnel anymore. This allows Modco to concentrate on its main business activities. Modco uses more freelancers. And who are the freelancers? These are independent people who may work for several different companies. And Modco also employ people for short periods on temporary contracts. Modco expects flexibility with people moving to different jobs when necessary, but for many employees, this means job insecurity, the feeling that they may not be in their job for long. Now here you have the word freelancer, and a freelancer is an independent person who may work for several companies. You don't have this person exclusively for you, because otherwise you have to give him a full-time job with all the benefits and everything. But since this person is a freelancer, he or she is free to work with any other company simultaneously if they can. So there are some advantages for freelancers, of course, because they might like the freedom of it, that they don't have to work for the same company for long. They may pick and choose the jobs they want to do, and they can work from home, for example. So that might be a flexible thing for many people to choose from. But this also means job insecurity, which is obviously the opposite of job security. Now, when you are employed on a full-time basis, you cannot just be dismissed like that with no reason. You have job security. But when you don't have a full-time contract, when you have a temporary contract, for example, like here with Modco, we said they employ people for short periods on temporary contracts, not permanent contracts. You may not have job security. Now, also we said that Modco expects flexibility. They want people to move to different jobs when necessary. But that creates also a sense of job insecurity for people because some people prefer to have the job they know best and they don't like new challenges, and that presents them with a challenge that may jeopardize their job security, in their opinion. Some people might like it. But anyway, the way these people are doing their job is discussed at performance reviews. And performance reviews are regular meetings with their managers every 3 months, 6 months, or even once a year sometimes to discuss their performance in the period and whether they performed badly or they performed well. And usually these things might have a lot of implications. If you have a good performance review, you might be up for a promotion or a pay rise. If you have a bad performance review, and especially when that happens a couple of times or many times, you might be at risk of getting fired from the company. And that brings us to the last point we want to talk about today, and that is losing your job. Now, if you do something wrong in a company, and we're talking about a big mistake here, you are dismissed or fired, or we can use the word sacked or terminated. So again, if you do something wrong in a company, you can be dismissed, fired, sacked, or terminated. If you've done nothing wrong, we don't use the same words. We don't use dismiss, fire, sack, or terminated because usually these words are related to mistakes. An employee made a big mistake. This employee is dismissed, fired, sacked, or terminated. If for other reasons, we're talking about reasons for downsizing or delayering or whatever, if you've done nothing wrong, you are laid off, made redundant, or offered early retirement. Now, these are not because you did something wrong, because the company did something wrong. The company's strategy was wrong in some place and they missed the mark in some project or many projects, and now they can't afford to have the same number of employees they used to have. So they need to downsize or delayer or restructure. So if you lose your job because one of these reasons, you are laid off, made redundant, or offered early retirement. Now, employees who are made redundant may get advice about finding another job, retraining, and this is called outplacement advice. So again, outplacement advice is the advice you get if you are made redundant about finding another job or retraining, etc. So that is all about the career ladder and the business English episode we have for today. I hope you found that useful. This is your host, Danny, saying thank you very much for listening to another Perfect English podcast episode. I will see you tomorrow in a new episode. Thank you very much.